Living alone is not merely a change of address, nor a simple new chapter in an ordinary life. It is a silent, profound, and transformative rite of passage, one that does not announce its arrival with fanfare, but shapes the soul with the force of an internal earthquake. Few have the courage to cross this threshold. Few understand the weight and grandeur of closing the door behind themselves, feeling silence fill the air, and realizing that from that moment on, everything that happens in that space depends solely on them. Most people spend their days surrounded by voices, expectations, and noises that dull their own consciousness. They seek approval in the eyes of others, company to avoid facing the void, distractions to evade meeting themselves. They live supported by an emotional safety net that, while comfortable, also prevents the deep growth that only voluntary solitude can offer. But a moment comes, and it comes to all who dare to mature, when life calls for something greater. A silent, almost spiritual summons, heard not with the ears, but with the innermost part of one's own essence. It is the call of conscious solitude, of freedom earned, not given, of the maturity that arises when you realize there is no one left to hold your hand, and that this is not a tragedy, it is the beginning of true strength. Imagine a man adrift in the ocean, not a desperate castaway, but a traveler who wakes and realizes he is surrounded by an infinite horizon, with no land in sight, no guides, no voices, only him, the sea, and his own breath. At first, the vastness is frightening. The heart races. The silence seems to scream, and the absence of company weighs like lead on the chest. But as the days pass, something changes. The man realizes there is a strength there he has never known, a clarity that only emerges when there are no more distractions, and he learns to trust himself, to listen to his own mind, to realize that the control he sought his entire life was never in the circumstances, but always, and only, within himself. Living alone is the earthly version of this voyage. It is the internal ocean revealing itself before you. In the first days, everything feels strange. The house seems too large. The walls echo your own thoughts. Silence weighs, not as a villain, but as a demanding teacher. Some give up at this beginning. Those who run back to noise, distractions, to the company that anesthetizes. But those who remain, they discover a truth that few have the courage to face. Solitude is not a punishment. It is a privilege, a portal, a sacred territory where men and women are born capable of sustaining their own lives without relying on the emotional support of others. Seneca said, "The greatest misfortune is not solitude, but the inability to enjoy it." And this phrase reveals the central point of this journey. Most fear being alone not because solitude is bad, but because they never learned to suffice. They never allowed themselves to be silent with themselves. They never faced their thoughts without the crutch of external distractions. They never developed the emotional self-sufficiency that transforms an ordinary individual into someone unshakable. That is why living alone is not merely living in another house. It is passing through a portal of transformation. It is a process that separates the strong from the fragile, the prepared from the dependent, the mature from those who still seek in others what they should find within themselves. And it is in this spirit that the first great lesson of this journey arises. The first of the 7 truths that shape those who experience living alone. Solitude is a test of emotional strength. 2. Living alone is a test of emotional strength. Living alone is not for everyone. It never was. It never will be. No matter your age, your story, or your past, there is an internal force, silent, firm, indomitable, that only awakens when you close the door of your own home and feel the impact of emptiness echoing around you. While you live with others, there is always an invisible safety net that accompanies you. The voices in the hallway, the sound of someone making coffee, the inevitable conversation about the day. All of this softens the weight of existence. But when that net disappears, when the house becomes completely silent, and the only sound is your own breathing, something profound happens. It is there, exactly there, that your true character emerges. Solitude is a relentless mirror. It reflects mercilessly everything you try to hide from yourself. If you are insecure, silence amplifies the insecurity. If you fear the void, it becomes a giant staring at you from the middle of the room. If you run from your own thoughts, they finally catch up with you. And that is why so many fear living alone. Because solitude allows no masks. It forces you to face who you really are when no one is watching, when there is no audience, when no external expectations are guiding you. But there is a beauty in this, a fierce, intense, transformative beauty. Because if you learn to handle this encounter, if you have the courage to sit with yourself, to listen to your fears, and to cross those inner shadows, then nothing can shake you. You discover a kind of strength that cannot be taught in books, inherited or bought. It is a strength that is born only in silence. The problem is that many confuse solitude with abandonment. They think being alone means being discarded, forgotten, left behind. But this is merely the fragile interpretation of those who have never experienced the depth of solitude. Being alone by choice is not isolation. It is freedom. It is reclamation. It is emotional maturity. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic emperors in history, wrote something that resonates even more strongly among those who live alone. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. And this phrase becomes an inescapable truth when you live within silent walls. If your mind is at peace, your home becomes a sanctuary. If your mind is at war, your home becomes a prison. This is how living alone becomes a real test, a training ground for emotional resilience that reveals what you are capable of sustaining internally. If you cannot bear your own company, how do you expect to be a good companion to someone else? If you need constant distraction, how will you gain clarity to make important decisions? If you cannot be with yourself for a few hours, how will you face life's inevitable challenges? Living alone forces these questions to surface, and no matter how uncomfortable they are questions that shape the individual you will become. True transformation occurs when you realize something simple. Those who learn to suffice themselves will never again be a hostage to anyone's presence. You begin to choose your company not out of need, but out of affinity, not out of lack, but out of abundance, not out of fear of being alone, but because you have already found balance within yourself. Solitude, once feared, now becomes an ally, a safe space, an internal temple where you discover that everything you need to sustain your life already exists within you, waiting to be activated. And this is only the first of the 7 lessons. The first door, the first test, the first flame that lights the path toward what Stoicism has always taught. Freedom begins with mastery over oneself. 3. When you live alone, your home reflects your state of mind. There are truths that only reveal themselves when you live without witnesses. One of them, and perhaps the most brutal, is that your environment says everything about you. It does not matter what you say, what you post, or what you show to the world. Your home, when you live alone, does not lie. It reveals. And it reveals with surgical precision. When you open the door of your own home, you are not just entering a physical space. You are entering your own mind, materialized. The mess you see around you is not just mess. The piled-up dishes are not just forgotten objects. The scattered clothes, the unmade bed, the stuffy environment. None of this is random. All of it is a direct reflection of your internal organization, your mental clarity, your emotional stability. It is as if every corner of the house is an enlarged mirror of what you avoid observing in silence. This is why living alone is so powerful, because no one else receives the impact of your actions, only you. There is no one to blame, no one to share responsibilities with, no one to mask the chaos. The entire house becomes an accurate portrait of your inner world. And this is where many people are shocked, because for the first time they are forced to face their own negligence, their own habits, their own lack of discipline. External disorder becomes a warning, an alarm, a silent call for change. Have you noticed how, on days when your mind is tumultuous, the mess seems to multiply? As if in some way, the physical world follows the internal turbulence. And on days of clarity, purpose, and motivation, Everything seems lighter, cleaner, more organized. This is not a coincidence. This is psychology applied in practice. This is self-knowledge manifested in walls, furniture, and objects around you. But there is an even deeper detail. Just as your mind influences the environment also influences your mind. It is a two-way street. When you organize, clean, and tidy your home, you are not just handling objects. You are reorganizing thoughts. You are putting order into internal chaos. You are giving visual form to your discipline. The Stoics always argued that external order assists internal order. Seneca said that the environment must serve the soul, not distract it. When you live alone, this becomes evident. The difference between a lost mind and a focused mind may lie in the simple choice between leaving a bed unmade or making it in the morning. It is not about perfection. It is about direction, about respect for yourself, about recognizing that you are responsible for the space you inhabit, both physical and emotional. Living alone transforms the home into a laboratory of the soul, a space where every detail matters, where every habit is revealed, where every negligence takes its toll, and also where every discipline, no matter how small, builds a pillar of your inner strength. When you live with someone, there is always the possibility of blaming the other for the mess, the disorganization, the chaos. When you live alone, this illusion ends. The responsibility returns entirely to your hands. And with it comes the most powerful opportunity of all, the chance to rebuild your life from the environment you yourself create. This is why, gradually, you begin to notice small transformations. You realize that a clean environment reduces anxiety, that an organized environment makes you think better, that a tidy desk increases your discipline, that a visually structured routine gives you confidence, and that when your home is at peace, you are too. Domestic discipline becomes mental discipline. Physical order becomes emotional order. And the house ceases to be just a space where you sleep. It becomes a living reflection of who you are becoming. When this perception finally settles within you, something changes permanently. You begin to treat the environment as an extension of your own character. Every action within the house becomes a small Stoic exercise. Every decision, tidying, cleaning, organizing, is training in self-control, presence, and responsibility. You realize for the first time that nothing around you is there by chance. Everything is consequence. Everything is reflection. Everything is you. And when you understand this deeply, the lesson becomes as clear as water. Your home is the most sincere proof of the kind of life you are building. 4. Living alone means understanding that no one will save you. There comes a moment in life, and it arrives with an almost brutal force, when you finally realize that there is no mystical figure, no invisible hero, no outstretched arm waiting to pull you up when everything collapses. This moment usually happens in silence, inside an empty house, when you look around and understand that any problem, any challenge, any fall, will be faced by you and no one else. Modern culture has accustomed us to the idea that there will always be someone to rescue us. Family, friends, partners, institutions, systems, as if the world were on standby to ensure that you never have to carry the weight of your own life alone. But living alone for just a few weeks is enough to see this illusion fall like a house of cards. You discover, sometimes painfully, that if you do not get out of bed, no one will do it for you. If you do not clean the mess, it will remain there. If you do not cook, you will go hungry. If you do not pay the bills, the lights go out. If you do not resolve your internal dilemmas, they accumulate like dust in the corners of a forgotten room. And this awareness, as harsh as it may seem, is one of the greatest gifts life can offer. It is as if solitude strips away the false belief that there is always someone responsible, someone who takes care, someone who holds things together, holds. And when you realize that this someone does not exist, you finally find the truth. This someone has always been you. Living alone is confronting this reality directly. There is no mask, no excuse, no room for victimhood. You learn that depending emotionally on others is a subtle prison, and you realize that true freedom is born when you assume, without fear, that everything that happens in your life is your responsibility. Marcus Aurelius, even as an emperor, wrote daily in his journals to reinforce this idea. Stop waiting for someone to come help you. Rise like a man. He understood that, regardless of the power he carried, the most important battle was always fought alone, within his own mind. And when you live alone, life places you in that same battlefield. It does not matter who you were in the past. There, between four walls, there is only you and the consequences of your choices. The silence of the house forces you to mature. It forces you to take the reins. It forces you to stop seeking external culprits. When something goes wrong, you realize what the Stoics always taught. You do not control the world, but you control yourself. And that is already more power than most imagine. This lesson could be bitter, but in fact, it is liberating. Because the moment you understand that no one will save you, you also understand that no one can stop you. You discover yourself capable, whole, self-sufficient, impossible to be defeated by circumstances. The absence of an external savior reveals the birth of the internal savior. That voice that says, if it is hard, you endure. If it is heavy, you carry it. If no one can help, you move forward anyway. And over time, you realize something even more powerful. Living alone does not isolate you. It strengthens you. It transforms you into someone who makes no emotional demands on others, who does not require someone to heal their pain, who does not expect others to fill their emptiness. You become your own foundation, your own safe harbor, your own shelter in stormy days. This is the great turning point. The moment when you realize that you no longer need the world to hold you, because now you sustain yourself, and it is here that a strength is born that no one can take from you. The strength of someone who knows they are capable of surviving, growing, and thriving without depending on anyone's hand. And paradoxically, it is when you finally need no one that you begin to relate better with everyone. Because now you choose, not out of need, but out of freedom. This is the third lesson: harsh, honest, transformative. And for the first time, you realize how much you wasted before. Unnecessary conversations, involuntary distractions, divided responsibilities, constant interference. All of this drained energy without you even noticing. But when the house is yours alone, when the space belongs only to you, when the silence is yours, then you discover a profound truth. Time only begins to obey when you learn to command it. In the first days, it is common to feel a sense of vastness. Hours seem longer, the day seems extended, the silence feels elastic. But soon this perception changes. Soon you understand that time was never short, it was simply mismanaged. And living alone transforms each minute into a mirror of your discipline. If you waste the day, there is no one to blame. If you procrastinate, the delay falls on you. If you postpone tasks, there is no external reminder, only the impact of your own negligence. This absence of supervision is, at the same time, a challenge and a privilege. A challenge because it demands maturity. A privilege because it frees you. For the first time, you begin to experience time as the Stoics saw it, a finite, precious resource, and entirely yours. Seneca wrote in On the Shortness of Life that most people do not live. They only let life pass by. And when you live alone, that phrase stops being philosophy and becomes practical reality. You start to notice the impact of every action, every choice, every second. You begin to realize that there is no longer the excuse of external noise. Now, if you do not improve your life, it is because you did not want to. If you do not train, it is because you chose not to. If you do not read, it is because you opted not to read. If you do not evolve, it is because you decided to remain the same. Total responsibility for your own time is a weight, but it is also a weapon. A weapon that few know how to wield. And, as you learn to handle it, you begin to notice something subtle. The way you manage your time determines the way you live your life. Procrastination ceases to be a mere habit and reveals itself as an enemy. Every wasted minute becomes a small betrayal against yourself. Every well-used hour becomes a brick laid in the construction of your future. When you live alone, Your time is no longer shared and becomes sculpted. Mornings gain a new meaning. Nights become deeper. Silence turns into an ally in the pursuit of focus and clarity. And for the first time, you understand Marcus Aurelius's phrase, "Stop wasting your life debating what a good man is. Be one." Being a good man, or a good woman, requires time, requires choices, requires prioritizing what matters, and living alone forces you to do exactly that. You begin to take pride in the small victories: a clean desk, a made bed, tasks completed on time, workout finished, reading done, meal prepared. These small rituals create rhythm, and rhythm creates character. Without external interference, your life begins to flow according to your own cadence. You start to notice what makes you feel good, what unbalances you, what drains you, what propels you. You start to observe how certain choices bring you closer to your best self, while others push you away. And little by little, without realizing it, you become more selective, more focused, more conscious. It is as if time gains texture, as if each hour has weight, as if every decision is a brushstroke on the canvas of your own existence. And this changes everything. Because when you learn to master time within your house, you learn to master time anywhere. And he who masters time masters himself, and he who masters himself fears nothing. This is the fourth lesson, the lesson that transforms ordinary days into important days, simple routines into powerful routines, and every minute into a real chance for growth. The lesson that separates those who live on autopilot from those who take the wheel of their own life. 5. Living alone makes you more selective with your relationships. When you live surrounded by people all the time, it is easy to confuse mere coexistence with true connection. It is easy to fill your house with voices, your phone with notifications, and your calendar with meetings. Not because these people genuinely make you feel good, but because their presence prevents the silence you fear. But when you live alone, this escape mechanism no longer works. Silence ceases to be a nuisance and becomes a sacred territory. And when this happens, you begin to notice something that was not evident before. Many people are only in your life because you never had the courage to make space for your own emptiness. Silence exposes. It shows you who truly matters and who was only filling noise. It shows who adds and who only drains. It shows who respects your space and who demands energy without giving anything in return. When living alone, you automatically distance yourself from people who were parasitizing your attention. Not out of arrogance, not out of coldness, but because now you feel clearly the impact of each presence. When someone enters your house, physically or emotionally, you immediately notice whether that presence expands you or diminishes you. Solitude becomes a natural filter, a powerful filter, a relentless filter. You begin to notice that some people only appeared when they needed something. Others were only around because they benefited from your energy, your time, your attention. Others never truly listened to you. They were only waiting for their turn to speak. Others occupied emotional space but brought no peace, no purpose, no reciprocity. And gradually, you begin to cut these ties. Not with conflict, but with maturity. Not with pain, but with lucidity. Not with anger, but with a kind of peace that comes from understanding. You are not obligated to carry people who do not carry anything for you. This is where many are surprised, because they expect living alone to make you needy, dependent, open to any presence. But the result is precisely the opposite. You become more selective, more conscious, stronger, and above all, more loyal to yourself. People who were previously unnoticed now reveal themselves. The friend who talks too much and listens too little. The colleague who only reaches out when they need something. The contact who never contributes anything. The relationship that only stayed alive out of habit. None of this escapes the gaze of someone who lives alone. Solitude illuminates what was previously in the shadows. And the most fascinating part is that, as you distance yourself from these empty connections, you draw closer to the real ones. Those rare people whose presence genuinely strengthens you. People who make you feel peace, not tension. Who respect your space, not invade it. Who add, not drain. These people do not scare you, because now they enter not as a distraction, but as a choice. You learn to better receive what is good, because you stopped accepting what is shallow. You learn to make room for deep relationships, because you eliminated the superficial ones. You learn to value those who remain, because you finally notice how many were only occupying space. Solitude teaches you that true connection does not compete with your silence. It complements it. It does not demand, suffocate, or invade. It fits. It flows. It respects. Soon, you begin to value quality over quantity. You realize that a single true friend is worth more than 10 empty acquaintances, that a mature relationship is worth more than 3 confusing loves, that a deep conversation is worth more than hours of words thrown into the wind. And this shift is not small. It completely changes the way you experience relationships. You stop seeking company out of fear of solitude, and begin to choose it only when it genuinely expands who you are. This is the stage where you understand one of the most important lessons of Stoicism. No one should occupy a greater space in your life than you are willing to grant. You begin to love more authentically because you do not love out of need. You relate with more presence because you are not trying to fill any void. You start to appreciate encounters, conversations, and bonds, not because you need them, but because you choose them. This is the 5th lesson, the lesson that transforms your relationships, the lesson that teaches you that silence is not the absence of people, it is the absence of the right people. And when you learn to be content alone, you finally learn to be content with others. 6. Living alone teaches you to value your own company. There is a moment, inevitable, transformative, that only happens when you live alone. It is when you realize that for the first time in your life, you are living with the most important person that exists, yourself. And this coexistence, at first, can be uncomfortable. It can be too silent. It can feel strange, heavy, and awkward. But as time passes, something begins to change within you. You start to recognize nuances of your own personality that were previously buried under the constant presence of others. The truth is that when you share a house with someone, there is always a social layer between you and your essence. You speak one way, behave another, create habits to please, maneuver situations to avoid tension. Even with those you love, there is always a minimum of adaptation. But when you live alone, that final layer falls away. There is no audience. There is no role to perform. There are no external expectations shaping your actions. There is only you and everything that you truly are. This is where one of the deepest adult experiences begins, learning to enjoy your own company. In the first days, the silence may feel like a cold void. You walk through the house and feel as if something is missing. But gradually, this silence begins to transform. It ceases to be absence and becomes presence. Your presence, a strong, calm, stable presence. You begin to realize that you do not need noise to feel alive. You do not need distractions to feel complete. You do not need others to feel accompanied. This is the point where voluntary solitude stops being a challenge and becomes a luxury. You learn to cook for yourself with pleasure. You learn to talk to yourself without feeling strange. You learn to appreciate your own rhythm, your own routine, your own way of existing. The entire house becomes a mirror of your identity. You choose what comes in. You choose what stays. You choose the energy, the objects, the habits, the environment. Everything passes through the filter of your own presence, and this creates a feeling that no relationship, no friendship, no company can replace. The sense that you are enough. From this point, your self-esteem begins to change. It is no longer that unstable self-esteem based on the approval of others. It is a silent, mature, rooted self-esteem. A self-esteem that arises from the simple and powerful fact that you can coexist with yourself and enjoy it. Living alone teaches you to see beauty in simple moments. Coffee taken slowly, in peace. A long bath without hurry. Music playing while you prepare dinner. Nighttime reading without interruptions. Internal conversations that reorganize your thoughts. Small rituals that transform routine into something sacred. And over time, you notice a detail that changes everything. your own company ceases to be Plan B and becomes Plan A. Not because you reject people, but because you have learned not to reject yourself. This is the foundation of emotional maturity. Someone who enjoys their own presence does not beg for anyone else's presence, does not force relationships, does not settle for crumbs, does not accept less than they deserve, and above all, does not fear abandonment because they know they will never be truly alone while with themselves. The Stoics called this autarky, the ability to be self-sufficient. For them, the truly wise individual is one who finds peace within, not outside, who finds balance in their own mind, not in the anxiety of having someone beside them. And living alone leads you precisely to this point, to the discovery that your mind can be a peaceful, pleasant, inspiring place, as long as you have the courage to truly inhabit it. Once you learn to enjoy your own company, no one can use solitude against you. No one can manipulate your fear of being alone. No one can control your emotional needs, because you no longer need to run away from yourself. This is the sixth lesson, one of the most beautiful, one of the most liberating. The lesson that transforms silence into an ally, the home into a temple, and your own presence into a refuge. 7. Time for yourself becomes your most precious treasure. When you start living alone, there is a discovery that does not arrive with a bang, but with a whisper. It is silent, discreet, almost imperceptible in the first days. But as your routine stabilizes and the environment adjusts to your rhythm, this revelation becomes impossible to ignore. You understand that your time is the most valuable asset you possess. In the world outside, time is constantly diluted by the demands of others, messages that interrupt your thoughts, empty conversations that drain energy, favor after favor, commitments you never wanted to take on, social rituals that you perform only because the collective expects them. But when you are alone, these interferences begin to disappear. What remains is a pure territory, a clean field where you finally see, with brutal clarity, how every minute can be used, or wasted. Discovering this is not only useful, it is transformative. Because when you understand the real value of time, you never again accept that someone else spends it for you. Voluntary solitude confronts you with a powerful question: what truly deserves the hours of your life? And this question, when answered with sincerity, changes everything. It changes your routine. It changes your habits. It changes your discipline. It changes your ambitions. At first, it is common to get a little lost in this freedom. No fixed schedules, no constant demands, no one reminding you of your obligations. The entire house seems to conspire in favor of procrastination. But over time, you learn that this freedom is a double-edged blade. It can lift you up or destroy you, depending on how you use every minute you have. That is why the Stoics insisted so much on the importance of mastering your own time. Seneca said, "We do not receive a short life, we make it short." And when you live alone, this phrase ceases to be theory and becomes tangible reality. You begin to notice that the days when you dedicate yourself to your goals feel longer, fuller. The days when you indulge in superficial distractions evaporate without leaving a trace. And this perception changes your relationship with everything. With work, with rest, with leisure, with study, with reflection. You understand that wasted time never returns, and that well-invested time always comes back, multiplied. Life begins to gain its own rhythm. You create rituals, the silent morning where you organize your plans, the productive afternoon where you advance in what matters, the introspective evening where you clear your mind before sleeping. Every moment gains meaning because it is chosen, not imposed. And most importantly, you realize that time dedicated to yourself is the most powerful time there is. It is in solitary hours that you read what you have always postponed. It is in silent hours that you learn what you have always wanted to learn. It is in the tranquility of being alone that you finally hear your own mind without external interference. And it is in this intimate space that you begin to build projects that previously seemed distant, impossible, or unreal. Solitude gives you an advantage that few know. the ability to direct your own life with precision. No noise, no distractions, no voices sabotaging your plans, no expectations from others draining your energy. But with this gift comes a huge responsibility. If you do not manage your time, it quietly slips away. Days become weeks. Weeks become months. The house becomes too comfortable, and the line between rest and stagnation begins to disappear. That is why living alone is not just having free hours. It is learning to transform them into evolution. The weak get lost in comfort, the strong turn time into fuel. The difference between one and the other lies in the degree of awareness with which every minute is used. And when you master this art, when you truly understand that every hour is an opportunity, something extraordinary happens. You stop being a slave to time and become the architect of your own life. You choose what is worth it. You cut what weakens you. You nurture what strengthens you. You advance, one day at a time, building an existence that finally makes sense. This is the seventh lesson, the final lesson, the one that closes the cycle of living alone. The understanding that time for yourself is not selfishness. It is wisdom. It is self-care. It is strategy. It is evolution. Because in the end, the time dedicated to yourself is the only time that truly shapes who you become. And whoever learns this early never accepts living on autopilot again.